Hello and welcome. Done on Purpose podcast, Power Acronym. My name is Aaron Dunn. Welcome back. Today is about Power Acronym 209, U.N.I.C.O.R.N. Excited to share this one with you. Recording it on my birthday, happens to be. And I posted this just yesterday on the Substack. PowerAcronym.com is where you can find that. If you're just finding this on audio on the podcast platform of your choice, it exists everywhere, but it's all sourced from PowerAcronym.com. It's a Substack newsletter. I'm writing a Power Acronym and sharing an acronym, Power Acronym every week, podcast every week. Intend to continue that rhythm throughout 2026, as well as the day one coaching calls. If you haven't found that yet, day one coaching calls. Day one starts tomorrow as of today. Day one of every month of 2026 on the 1st, be hosting a coaching call live. And I'm excited about that. If that's something that resonates to you, because it's not about motivation. It's not about getting excited and hype. It's really about a return. One thing I've made a mantra is this day one mentality, that every day is day one versus one, and you are a one of one. But this is about Power Acronym 209, U.N.I.C.O.R.N, and I want to share that with you. So you can always go, if you haven't subscribed yet to the Substack, please do, poweracronym.com. You can read some of the day one coaching call about that. Feel free to message me at Done on Purpose on Instagram. Message me through the Substack. If you know me personally, message me, whatever. Anyway, I wanted to connect with you and share Power Acronym 209, U.N.I.C.O.R.N. And, this one feels heavier than most power acronyms, to be honest. Because this one isn't about standing out. It's about standing up. The subtitle for Power Acronym 209 U.N.I.C.O.R.N is a leadership standard worth living under. And any time that I'm creating something, sharing it with the world, I'm very intentional about, is this something that I agree with, that I will do, that I will execute on, that I will take action on, instead of just sharing stuff, because integrity is really important to me, core value for me. And so it feels a bit heavier because this raises my own standard. And this is all by design, because 2026, I'm an ambitious person. And I think this is something that we should all strive for, is continually raising our standard, making our best our new baseline. And so it feels heavier than most power acronyms, but for good reason. So I was originally resistant to the word unicorn, possibly for obvious reasons. My Little Pony, Lisa Frank, glitter, purple hair, magic, cartoon, caricature of unicorn, the pop culture identity of a unicorn. And it was originally this power acronym this serves as a bridge between the end of 2025 and the beginning of 2026. And in the creation process of this, as I was writing it, I was thinking about, well, I want to ensure that whatever it is, the kickoff for the first power acronym of 2026, effectively, I want it to have staying power. I want to look back 6, 8, 12, 24, 36 months and say, it still resonates today. And so it was originally going to be horse, HORSE, because in 2026, it's a Chinese zodiac new year is the year of the horse. And so I thought, okay, that could be kind of cool to do, to kind of go with that theme. But then, and I was all right with that. I was thinking about it. And then I heard this quote, which goes, in a world full of horses, be a unicorn. And that hit me. And I keep seeing content about 2026 year of the horse, what it means, and I jive with it. It's cool. But then I said, in a world full of horses, be a unicorn. What does that mean in this context? What does it mean to be a unicorn at all when you're not a 10-year-old girl? Or, you know, but I also hear unicorn in the context of business. I've heard that before. Like, we're trying to find a unicorn. Maybe it's a hard person to recruit, or it's a unicorn. It's somebody that is a linchpin. It is the unicorn is somebody who everybody wants, but rarely sees and very rarely experiences. Most people hear be a unicorn and think be different. That's not what Power Acronym 209 Unicorn is. Unicorn is not about being special per se. It is about being responsible. That is the standard. That is the leadership standard, but it's a elevated level of responsibility. So let's get with it. It's unicorn. It's 7 letters. It's one of the longer acronyms that I've written, and I'm excited about it. Let's go deep. And so, unicorn isn't, and just before we get into the breakout of the of each letter, unicorn isn't a personality type. This isn't necessarily about like the type of person you're going to find. It's a leadership standard that you live up to. So it's not about ego or rebellion or being louder or flamboyant or stylistically whatever. If something needs to change and no one is stepping up, that is the moment where unicorn leadership is. If something needs to change and no one is stepping up, the unicorn is going to step in and lead. Standing up costs more than standing out. And that's why fewer people do it. And that is also why it's so valuable. And so let's go. So U in unicorn stands for unleashed. I love this word, unleashed. Unleashed doesn't mean reckless. It means removing internal brakes. On a previous Power Acronym, I think it was Alone or Apart, one of the 2-part series of Separation Season. I talk about unleashed, or I talk about in the context of performance as a quote from a coach that I pay attention to, that I follow. And it says, performance equals knowledge minus leashes. And then unleashed, I want to just break that into what that means for the unicorn. So it doesn't mean reckless. It means removing internal brakes. Self-censorship. Maybe you've had the experience where you're ready to step up, you're ready to stand up, you're ready to say something, do something, but you self-censor. It's movement. It's movement when it's safer to stand still. In the post, in the written post, I talk about going to Chelsea's parents' land in East Texas, and it's a lot of land out. It's farmland, and it's fun because we take the dogs, Jack and Jig, and they're small dogs. Jig is a Shih Tzu, and he has the most fun out there. And we don't have them on leashes or anything because they're pretty well behaved dogs, but also they don't need it because there's so much land. We're not close to a road or anything, and it's funny because Jig will get the zoomies. Like, he just starts, running faster, running in circles, running for no reason at all other than he feels free. He's unleashed. That is the feeling of unicorn leadership, but it's not a feeling necessarily. It's important to remember that this is a leadership standard. So the act of being unleashed to where you're unencumbered. You don't have a leash. You don't have anything holding you back. You don't have the internal brake. And so, because we will leash ourselves more often than somebody will leash us. And so the problem usually isn't rocking the boat. It's pretending still water is safety in the idea that we will, as humans, anybody, myself, will pretend that whatever status quo is good and safe and great. But one thing Grant Cardone will say is flat lines always fall. And it's important that we recognize that the next level of ourselves, personally, professionally, in our energy, our work, our love, is found in removing the internal brakes and unleashing ourselves, uncapping ourselves, removing the lid that we place on ourselves. That is unicorn leadership, to be unleashed. Let's get to the N. N stands for nonconforming. And nonconformity creates friction by definition. It just by definition, being a nonconformist is going to just create some friction. In thinking about this, nonconformity came to mind, and then the quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, writer from the 1800s. In 1841, he published an essay called Self-Reliance. Excellent, excellent. I return to it multiple times a year. Here's one. And in it, one of the quotes is, "Whoso would be a man must be a nonconformist." He also says, "Insist on yourself, never imitate." And of course, he uses 1800s language, but the point is pretty simple. To be yourself at all requires nonconformity. And so, because when you are fully yourself, you bring your full self, you're by definition different than other people. And so your experience, your opinion, your skill set, your who you are is different. And so when we conform, we're conforming to the cultural norms, the environmental norms, the whatever norms of society and what they say. And it's not to say that, we should always buck whatever those norms are, because norms are important, traditions are important, and there's a lot to be gained from that. But this is a different conversation. When we talk about the standard of leadership that we're rising up to, nonconformity is important because we have to set ourselves apart somehow. And so this is not active rebellion. It is nonconformity. And this is not about getting attention, plastering a horn on your head and, changing your hair color and having glitter all over the place for attention. It's about what is the intention to set to be different, to be set apart. And so sometimes the most non-conforming thing you can do is simply do the work properly. In the post, I talk about, and this is not just I'm not trying to pat myself on the back necessarily, but this came to mind as a story to share with you and possibly illustrate for you what I'm talking about here. Is I was working at Panera Bread as an associate, low level. I was in my early 20s and didn't have a great skill set or whatever. I had some restaurant experience. And anyway, I swept up the place. I cleaned tables. I bussed tables. I delivered food and sometimes took orders when I very first started. And I would do that. And I showed up in the morning, I clocked in, clocked out, did my thing, didn't create a ruckus of any kind. I had my uniform, all that. I did my job essentially and didn't fraternize and get in any kind of drama or whatever. And eventually, in a period of months, I was promoted to shift manager. And the reason is because I simply did my job. Like sometimes the most non-conforming thing you can do is excellence. And excellence, because excellence is so rare these days. People who care about other people, people who want to do good for other people. Like these things are basic table stakes, but surprisingly enough, they're rare. And so we'll get to rarity in a little bit, but to non-conform, to not to make it cool to do good, to strive, to be better. Sometimes that's looked down upon, but for the unicorn leader, that's just what you do. So let's move on to the I, intentional. Intentional. So I know that this is coming out on the 1st of January 2026, but the new year is not the point. Intentionality is. Does not matter. Your resolutions don't matter any more in January than they did in June, July, September, October. You can change your life, change your habits, and really turn things around whenever you want. It might take time, but I heard this quote from Evan Macklin, one of the Macklin twins, just yesterday, where he says this decision takes a second, results take time. And so it's about the intentional decisions that we make. The unicorn leader is intentional. The real question isn't what you plan to do, it's who you're intending to be. Because when you shift from doing things and activities, you shift that from I intend to be this person, the actions actually come with it. I intend to be this person, and so the actions just fall into place. And of course, there's a push and pull when you're doing new habits, but this isn't necessarily about habits right now. It's about intentionality. What you intend to do, who do you intend to become, and what does that mean for you? And so the intentional unicorn leader is not leashed by moods and emotions. It is that person is in a rhythm. It's the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And serving at home, serving yourself, serving at work, whatever it is. And you create this essentially safety and more productivity and greater output and capacity through clarity. When you're intentional, you have to be clear. And when you're clear, you're saying no to certain things. And when you say no to certain things, there's only a certain amount of things left. And that is an intentional act. And in that, you find speed. Resolutions don't fail, follow through does. And so, how intentional will you be in 2026? That's what this is about. And it's okay if we fall, if we falter, if we make a mistake, we have a setback, we fail. It's all about how we intend to get back to it, how we return. And that's what that day one coaching call is about. I'm creating a space for people to return. And it's important. Hey, if we're in month 5, May, we hit May, and in 4 months, you've hit every single thing and you haven't messed up at all and whatever, but we're recommitting. That's what it exists for, to recommit, to have a community of people, but also just arrive at a place and say, hey, I'm recommitting on day one. It's day one every day. Every day is day one. So that's intentional. C, creative, modern. So creative. As automation grows, creativity becomes leadership currency. In the world of AI and all this stuff, there's a lot of things that can be created and we can create more. I certainly use AI in my creative output. It's been awesome because I was creative before and now I can just be creative faster. And that's fun. That's excellent. But creativity becomes leadership currency because the creative leader is the one who actually is putting all things together. And it's important that the creative mind, the matter between your ears is what matters more than any kind of modern computer that is taking your information and regurgitating it into some kind of thing. And so the human creativity is really what is the most important, one of the most important qualities. And of course, creative. You talk about a unicorn, that's pretty creative. And so we have to work with technology. We can't work against it. Also, when I think about creative and I think about leadership and what it means in the context of unicorn and raising our standard as as a leader, you have to be creative because you're going to find different problems. Different problems are going to come up. Your team is going to have different problems. And it is up to the leader to provide a creative solution. You can be creative and you can create through a solution, or you can be destructive and you say, why? Well, you know, you can list all the reasons why it won't work, or you can list all the reasons why it shouldn't have happened, but you're wasting time at that point. A good leader, in my opinion, is creative in that as a leader, they tell a different story. They say, okay, well, with what we have, we're going to take all the information that we have and we're going to reframe it into a new story and say, well, given everything that we have, this is what we can do. That's a creative act. We're going to move, we're going to act, we're going to do something with what we've got, even if it's a bunch of crap. You reframe everything into a new story and say, this is what we're going to take. This is how we're going to take this. This is how we're going to spin this. And this is not about lying, manipulation. This is not about anything like that. It's about being honestly creative in how you approach something and making it a collaborative effort of going, okay, well, what do you think? What do you think? And how can we take the best of everybody's ideas and bring it into one focused, intentional thing? Leadership isn't just solving problems, it's shaping the story around those problems so that we can all move together. Let's get to optimistic because, as I build these power acronyms, I hope you can see in the design of them, we're going unleashed, nonconformist, intentional, creative. Things just kind of progress in that way. And each one builds upon the other. It's a collective effort here. And so optimism. So creativity with optimism, that's very, very powerful. But optimism isn't just positivity, it's engagement. I'm not talking about pie in the sky, clappy, happy positivity. Like, oh, well, I'm not a person that's going to say the sun's shining when it's raining outside. It's it's about engagement, how you engage with the world. I've heard a lot of times, like, I'll provide an optimistic outlook on something or try and think of a creative way to get through something, even when it's a hardship. And I've heard people say, well, I appreciate the optimism, but I'm just being realistic. Like the realistic thing is, and then they say some crap and it drains the morale of everybody. And everybody doesn't feel motivated to do anything because it's like, oh, well, woe is me. This is terrible. And so when I think about optimism, I think about engaging in reality and really understanding what all the problems are, but creating through it. That's why creative and optimism kind of go hand in hand for me and for the unicorn leader. Optimism is choosing complexity over convenience. And so it can be more convenient to say, well, let's just take the L, or we're going to have to just, eat it, or whatever it is. I don't know what the scenario might be for you, and it might be harder to do the optimistic thing. It might be, and it might take longer. It might take more effort, but it's worth pursuing to get to that better end. That's what the unicorn leader does. The R in unicorn stands for rare. Rare. You can't find the unicorn everywhere by nature, right? So when it comes to rare, I wanted to share this again. It's not a I just try to share relevant examples from my life. That's why that like I try to make this like I'm not making stuff up. I just try to share stuff from my own experience, and of course, I'm more apt to share the things that make the point. And I'm not going to share the deepest, darkest, or whatever. Maybe one day I will, but a lot of times I like to get some distance from the bad things, failures before I share them because there's a lot of people who I know personally that listen to stuff, but that I put out. But anyway, I wanted to share this because it really touched my heart. And when it comes to purpose, I think that this is the case for a lot of people. Whatever trade, whatever service, whatever job you hold, like work, whatever your opinion of your work is currently, even if you're there for a short time, not a long time, not forever, it's not your career, not your dream job, whatever it is, you do an important work no matter what you do. It's important, it's necessary. Otherwise, people wouldn't create the job that you have. And so I am preambling rare because it's just important for you to realize that you have a rare opportunity to be of service to somebody and you never know how that might impact them. And so that's why you should pay attention. That's why it's worth being a nonconformist. That's why it's worth doing something good for people and showing up as your best in whatever you do. Um, I recently helped a homeowner who had paid, they had a lot of trees and overgrown backyard, older man, sick, and can't really do it himself, and it got away from him. And so he had, a lot of work that needed to be done in this backyard. And he told me that he had had 3 people come by and offer to help him, and he paid these 3 individuals over time, each time in advance. And they said that they'd come back, and they never did. They all took the money and disappeared. And so when I connected him with somebody reliable, he said it was the first good deal he'd made in a long time because my guy, of course, came back and did the job and did a great job. And so I wouldn't recommend anybody who wouldn't. But that unfortunately is rare. Sometimes people like that is just an example of rare in that, sometimes the rarest thing you can do is be decent, be good, care about people. And to the degree that you care more, the more rare you will be. If you care more about your client, you care more about your spouse, you care more about your kids, you care more about your church, your community, the more rare you become because a lot of people don't care at all. There's so much apathy. There's so much whatever in the world. People are so self-involved that when you put yourself in other people's shoes and you do that again and again and more often, and you put in the effort, you create rarity. And we need more rare people in the world. Being decent has become rare, and that is the opportunity. Doing what you say you will do is still rare, and that's why you should do it. And so that takes us to necessary. Before we wrap this up, necessary. Now is the time for unicorn leadership. There's tons of information. There's tons of influencers out there. So John Maxwell, legend, author, speaker, he says that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less, which I agree. We are in a influencer culture, and there's tons of influencers out there with millions of followers, thousands of followers, whatever. But that doesn't mean that there's millions of leaders. That doesn't mean that there's actual leadership happening. It just means that there's platforms and there's people out there that have optimized their online persona to gain as much attention as possible so that they can convert it into whatever. And there's a degree of all content creation and marketing and stuff that has that element to it. And I'm not trying to discard people who put out I am one of them, chief of sinners here. Uh, all I'm saying is that unicorn leadership is necessary, and we have to think about who we're going to be and who we're going to be for. And the the reason it's necessary and the reason the unicorn is necessary is because it's time that we put proximity over platforms. Local leadership will change the world. Unfortunately, there's not enough local leaders standing up and doing it. And so we have the leaders that are going to change the world the most, or the fastest way to create positive change in the world, is to become a local leader, a unicorn leader, in my opinion, because you can impact the people that you are neighbors with much faster than you can gain an audience of thousands of followers and go wide, but this shallow. Go deep locally with however many people are right beside you. When you do that, you become necessary and you actually do create an impact. It's time to end the caricatures of leadership and stand up and be one. Takes me to that Marcus Aurelius quote. The Marcus Aurelius quote that says, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." That stands for the ladies too. People are not starving for content, they're starving for examples. So what would you do about that? I hope you become unleashed, a nonconformist, more intentional, creative, optimistic, rare. It's necessary. That's Unicorn, Power Acronym 209. I hope you enjoy it. Would love to have a chat about it, talk about it. Love to see how you're implementing it in your world, in your life, in your work. Where in your life, just kind of final question here, where in your life do you already know it's time to stand up? And what would change if you did? As always, I'm very appreciative of your attention, your support. And if you enjoyed this, please let me know. I love your feedback. Just gives me an idea of, what people are enjoying, and also share it with a friend. Poweracronym.com made that URL so it would be kind of easy. And subscribe if you haven't. Follow on the Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, all the places. Love to connect. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Have a good one. Happy New Year.